This is Ron Burns with N2N2. We're going to demonstrate the disassembly of an intensifier for the replacement of the hydraulic piston seals. First thing, remove the inspection port covers on both sides and locate by sticking your finger inside the inspection port where the hydraulic piston is. This piston is all the way that way. This one I cannot feel. So the work will begin on the one closest to the end cap. Next step is to remove the 5/8 GIC tubing. Place a bucket underneath that. Loosen it at the manifold. Remove it at the end cap. Slight amount of oil coming out. Next is to loosen the end cap. Once this is pretty much drained, you can remove this, set it aside. Remove the end cap. Remove and discard the old O-ring from the hydraulic end cap. Use a large impact. I use a 3/4 inch air impact with a 1 7/16 socket. Don't bother putting a socket and a torque wrench on this, because all you'll do is spin the entire system. It's got to be an impact. Remove the nut and the washer, discard. Next step is to remove this cylinder along with the piston. So you can pull from the back. It's probably tight. An easy way to make this removable is to pry slightly. Put it in the inspection port, careful not to touch the chrome rod. Block of wood against the aluminum end cap and pry it off. You'll notice that this piston is not coming with the cylinder. Special attention needs to be taken here. You do not want to slide this off the entire piston. So I take the inspection port to the piston, exposed right there. Use a plastic drive tool and a mallet. And then the piston should follow off. Piston with the cylinder. Stand the cylinder up. Push the piston out the pressure side. Never take the piston out this side. This is our old style, version 3. aluminum pistons. We don't use these anymore. If yours has this, you will need to order the new ductile iron pistons. Notice the difference. Discard this piston. From the ductile iron piston, the red halide wear band has already been removed. The easiest way to do this is to remove the Energizer O-ring from the cup seal. I prefer to cut this cup seal. Being careful not to scratch the seal gland. Remove the chrome rod O-ring. Again, be careful not to scratch the O-ring gland. Remove the backup O-ring. Notice the orientation. One side is cupped, one side is flat. Flat goes down away from the O-ring. One other item to check while doing this rebuild is to check your tie rods. All of them. The hydraulic tie rods and the intensifier tie rods. You'll see these are just a silver color. These are 303 stainless tie rod. We don't use those anymore because we've had a couple of failures. We now provide 17.4 pH stainless, over double the strength. You'll notice by the difference in color, especially on the threads, you'll notice what you have and what you don't have. So if you don't have 17.4 stainless, strongly recommend that you change these out while you're doing the rebuild. All right. In the last video that Ryan produced, we need to further explain to run this wing nut down to the top of the cylinder, just that it touches the top of the cylinder. That puts the piston in a position to go onto the chrome rod in the proper position. Okay, we're ready to install this onto the hydraulic end and the chrome rod. With the intensifier, make sure you remove the O-ring that holds the wear band in place after you've assembled the piston into the cylinder. If your unit has oil cylinder sensors, install those at this time. No need to be much more than finger tight. Hold the cylinder, carefully slide this between the tie rods and center it on the chrome rod. Center the chrome rod into the piston hole and O-rings. Lift up on the back so that it goes on squarely. Hold it up a little bit. Push it as far as you can. In the parts kit, you have a new stainless steel washer. Goes onto the ductile iron piston and chrome rod in that position. You'll also have a brand new castle locking nut. Oil the inside of that on the threads. Start it in place. Make sure the window is centered over this. Check valve and not rubbing up against the cylinder oil sensor on a tie rod. your impact wrench. Again, it does no good to use a torque wrench because you'll just spin the whole mechanism. You'll notice that when it tightened, it rotated the cylinder slightly. Get something plastic or wooden and straighten that cylinder back up to center. You can line it with the check valve and the 1/4 bolt that's inside there on the seals. In your kit, you've got a new O-ring for the hydraulic cylinder end cap. Put enough grease on it and install it into the gland after you've cleaned it thoroughly. And you got to press it in there a little bit and make it stick. These check valves indicate that that's the front side. You'll also have your hydraulic manifold self-reversing valve system up here. This is the front. So when you go to put the hydraulic end cap on, the JIC fitting goes to the front side. Inspect that nothing dirty, debris or anything got inside there during that impact operation. Make sure this face is completely clean for the new O-ring seal. Slide that onto the rods. Reinstall the 4 stainless washers. Lubricate the threads, preferably with Molly D. That'll guarantee that the torque is proper. Before snugging these up, you'll notice that the cylinder hasn't reached the aluminum end cap yet. Piston is tight onto the chrome rod, but the cylinder typically will have a gap if you weren't able to push it all the way on. As you snug these up, the cylinder will go up, down, left, and right. So make sure you pull it onto that register of the aluminum end cap squarely, alternating back and forth, watching that it goes tight up against the aluminum end cap. Be secure. Again, check it for center on the 1/4 and the check valve, that it's square. And now, before you torque this up, put a straight edge and line it to the top of this aluminum end cap. If it's off, you can typically take a 15/16 end wrench and rotate it just enough to get this edge parallel with the top of the aluminum end cap. Too far. Too far. This will be critical when you go to connect the 5/8 JIC tube to the hydraulic manifold if it's not square. You can now snug these up. Get a torque wrench. Begin at 95 pounds. We're going to finish at 105 pounds. On a used system, if you got 130 plus pounds here, a rebuild scenario, you should be able to put a rubber nozzle tipped gun in this JIC port, and it'll shuttle that piston all the way across. So the rod will be prepared for the installation of the second cylinder.